Be sure to check out my store for the stuff I use and templates at a low cost, and get my everything pack so you can have everything in my store at a reduced cost, less than $20 if you tweet it out. What's up guys, Qehzy here bringing you guys another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this wooden header in Photoshop. If you want to follow along to this tutorial, I have all the images available for download in the description right now. Also, if this video gets 100 likes, I'll put this PSD in the description for you guys to download. But a couple things before we get started that I have to let you know that I use in this are I use some brushes from my store that you can buy. Links in the description, or you can use internet ones. They're basically just splatter brushes and scratch brushes, which are pretty common on the internet. You can find them, or you can use mine that are part of my brush pack. And second of all, I use stuff from my Insane pack, which is also in my store. Link is also in the description. But it's just some fairly easy stocks, and if you don't want to buy it, you can use, again, internet stocks or anything you have. So just a heads up about that, and let's go ahead and get started. So when you download the stuff in the description, all the stocks and stuff, it'll come with a PSD that'll come with this background and the color correction, which I don't have up right now, but this is what you can open up to start following along. So let's start off by adding our text. So I'm actually going to pull up the guide here, and I'm using Pantone, and I'm actually using it black italic. So let's click in the middle here. I obviously have a two-part name, so it's that's, and duplicate that, Qehzy. And the colors we're going to be using are dark gray and red. So let's on that's, or the top text, we're going to go dark gray. The bottom text, we're going to go a dark red. So somewhere like here, maybe that's a little too much. Yeah, around here, towards the middle, bottom, you guys get the gist. Click OK, and it's actually, we want to save that red for later, so I'm actually going to click on it and have it over here to the right. Now let's actually move the bottom text over a bit and up a bit so there's a slight overlap. Select both the text layers, and we're going to center them up, and we're going to increase the size. You can set it to whatever you want. I'm just eyeballing everything, and then we're going to rotate it so it's along the angle of the wood, and we're going to line it up with that middle line of wood here. So that's our text setup. Pretty easy, not too difficult to do. Now we're actually going to add a layer mask to both of these layers, and we're going to get our brush tool, and I'm going to be using Scratches 5 from my brush pack. You can use other scratches or whatever, but we want to have black selected, and on that layer mask you want to make sure that's selected, and we're going to go ahead and kind of click around and scratch up the text so it blends in a little better with the wood. That might be a little too much, but alright, that's pretty good. And then do the same thing to the other text. That's alright. I spent a little more time and added multiple brushes on this when I did it originally, so you can do that. For tutorial's sake, I'm just going to kind of move quickly and show you guys the process and the steps. So that's essentially all I did for the text. Like I said, you can add a little more if you want and kind of get creative with it yourself. Now we're going to add the blood splatter. So I'm going to create a new layer. We want that red selected now, and I'm actually going to use my Scratches 7 brush. Decrease the size a bit. I'm going to zoom out here and actually bump up the size again a little bit. And I'm going to kind of go to the top of this and do something like that. Boom, creates that nice blood splatter that looks really sweet. And I'm actually going to drag that layer below the text. Zoom in here, and you can see this covers pretty much the whole picture. We could add a little more to the left if we wanted to, but I want the look that like someone got shot over here and it's splattered this way. So I'm going to leave it as is. Again, you guys can take creative liberties and do whatever you want. But we're actually going to create a layer mask on this layer as well. Get the brush tool. Grab a normal soft brush, decrease the size a little bit, make sure black is selected, and on any part of the rope we actually want to kind of erase bits. So If I show you the original, actually, you can see I erased some of the bits here, and it actually looked like the blood was sort of absorbed into the rope, which I thought was a really cool look. So that's what I'm trying to recreate with this. So let's grab that. I'm gonna have to make it a little smaller, and let's erase some bits of it. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure how good this will look, but let's go ahead and double click on that layer now and add the bevel and emboss so it's like 3Dified. I don't know if that's a word, but these are the settings I use for it. It's 1000 depth, direction up, style is inner bevel, smooth, size 8, soften 0, angle 90, altitude 30. Highlight mode is screen white 28%, shadow multiply black 19%. So you guys can copy that down or maybe do your own thing if you want it to get a different look. And I'm just going to click OK. You can see now our text is 3D and it looks pretty sweet. Or not our text, but the blood. So cool. Now let's move on and add the gun to the top left. So I'm actually going to go to the very top and bring in this gun layer, which will be in the downloads for you guys. Bring that over. Let's flip it. Let's rotate it so it sort of lines up with our wood and our text, or at least the barrel does. I'm going to increase the size a tad. And that doesn't, there we go. And let's align it over here. Bring it down maybe. That should be pretty good. I like that. And let's decrease the opacity, add a layer mask on it, zoom in here, and we want to get rid of the portion that is overlapping with the rope, because we want the rope to look up on top of it, like the gun is underneath. So there's a few ways you could go about doing this. I stuck to the easy way and just pen tooled along the rope. So you can just do it where the gun is. So that gun starts like right about here, I think. And we're just going to follow the rope. Alright, once you do that, you just want to close it off. Click selection, feather 0. Let's just flip it so the black is in the back. And Command Delete to fill that layer mask in. Command D to deselect. We can bring the opacity back up. And our gun is now underneath. You can see the way I pen tooled it, I used all straight lines, I didn't round anything, so it is a bit rough. And you can see if we wanted to smooth that or kind of add a little more detail, we can do a few things, like get the soft brush, get our black, be on that layer mask and kind of click down through. And then you can start seeing some of the bristles of the rope. That doesn't look too good though, in my opinion, because you get some of the wood background. It's probably better if you actually take your time pen tooling and actually round where the rope is round, instead of having all sharp edges, because sharp edges kind of look dumb for something that you would think is a little bit rounded with no sharp edges such as a rope. But yeah, now we're going to go ahead and do some shadows. So I'm going to create a new layer and alt click on that new layer so it's a clipping mask, or you could right click, create clipping mask, and we want to have black selected, and we're we're going to create a shadow on the gun on either side of the rope. In my mind, the light source is coming from up here, and we'll add more to that later on. But so you want to think of a shadow coming this way. So on this side, it's going to be a little darker and pronounced. This side, it's going to be a little less. So let's go ahead and go along this side like that. It's a little too much maybe, so let's decrease the opacity. And then click on the gun layer, create a new layer, and it should automatically make it a clipping mask. And let's go down the other side of the gun. Oops, that's a little rough, but we're going to decrease the opacity a lot anyway because the shadow is going to be a lot subtler. So something like that. Now let's go below the gun layer, create a new layer, and now we're going to actually add the gun shadow itself. So we could do a drop shadow, but then that kind of messes up with the back part of this. So I'm just going to do it a simpler way, and let's actually just go get a brush, and we're going to follow the main bit of the gun like this. So we get something like that. Get the eraser tool and erase the bit on the rope because we don't want that. Oops, that might be a little too much. Alright, and then we can decrease the opacity, and that basically takes care of the barrel of the gun, but we want to create a new layer again. Get the brush tool, and we want to get the trigger area. So let's do the same thing, go around like so, and then grab the eraser tool. I'm going to have to make it a little smaller and erase the bits we don't want. Something like that. Decrease the opacity, and boom, there's our shadowing for the gun. There's probably easier ways to go about doing this, but that's just the way I did it. Now, there's actually something cool that we can do with the gun and get rid of this Colt text because it is backwards since we flipped it. So if we go to the clone stamper, we can go in here, click Alt on the black bit, and then let's go and start covering up the text. When the text starts repeating itself, go back, click Alt on the left, and keep going. And then actually I'm going to start from the other side too. Since they're two different grays, we don't want it to be all light or something. Alright, so you can get rid of the text real easy like that, and then you can go ahead and add your own text if you want, or do something like that. But let's keep adding some details to the gun. So let's go to the very top, create a new layer, overlay it, and remember what I was telling you about the light? Well, we're going to actually take advantage, or kind of implement that. So let's make sure we have white selected here. Get a soft brush, bump up the size a lot, and we're just going to kind of go like that. That's a little too much. Something like that, and then let's set that to soft light, and that's basically our light source coming down and hitting that gun. Again, let's create a layer underneath that one, and we're going to make this black. Decrease the size a little bit, and let's go to the bottom and decrease the opacity a little bit. So that kind of has our light effect going on now. And one last thing we can do is below both those layers create another new layer, and let's add some scratches. So I'm going to go back to the which layer do I want to use? I'll use the original scratches we used on the text, scratches 5. We want to have white selected, and let's click around the gun, and we're going to rough it up a little bit. So something like that. That looks pretty good. Set that to overlay. Decrease the opacity a little bit, and maybe get the eraser tool or add a layer mask and get rid of some of the bits that look kind of dumb. So that looks pretty good. The gun's a little scratched up, and then finally we can create another new layer. Let's select our red color from the text. We can just go ahead and click it. Get the brush tool. Get the splatter, one of the splatter brushes. So I'll use the brush I used for the blood splatter originally. We'll zoom out here a little bit, increase the size, and we're just gonna click like that and add some blood splatters to the gun. And I'm actually gonna rotate it. Actually, let me try this again. I'm just gonna rotate the brush to begin with, because we're gonna act as if the gun was shooting, so the blood wouldn't be at the same angle as the rest of the blood. It'd kind of be more straight on. That's a little too much. I just want bits like that. That'll work. And we can add that bevel and emboss again. Okay. Or we can hide that and just decrease the opacity so it's like a little darker stained blood, which I kind of like that look a little better. So that's essentially the gun. Now let's move on to the social media bits that I added. That's the gun. Let's start finishing this up. So I'm gonna completely zoom out. Let's go ahead and create a new layer at the very top. Go back to our black and white, make sure we have white selected. We're just gonna go back to a normal soft brush, bump up the size somewhere in the thousands. I'm gonna zoom out here, and I'm just gonna go right across the top, set that to soft light, decrease the opacity a little bit. There we go. And this is when I'm gonna start implementing my color correction. So I'm just gonna actually duplicate it, bring it to the top here, hide that. So now this piece is gonna be starting to come together a little more. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the bullet holes that will be in the download that you downloaded, bring them over onto the document. I did like 3 in the original one, so I'm gonna actually make these a tad bit smaller. Boom. Maybe have one over here. And I'm actually gonna rotate each one so they're not all facing the same direction. Boom. There we go. Those are our bullet holes. Maybe, could I decrease the opacity? Yeah. They're a little too dark, so I'm going to go around 84 opacity. And boom, there are bullet holes. And now we're going to actually get into my insane pack a little bit. And I'm actually going to be right below the color correction. And let's hide that. Let's go to flares first. And let me grab flare 1. And we're going to bring that over. I'm going to bump up the size. And like I said, our light source is going to be coming from that top left. So we want it like this. And that looks pretty good. Decrease the opacity maybe a bit. But there we go. There's our light source. We could play around with that a little more, but I'm just going to leave it as that. And then we want to go ahead and start doing some of the social media stuff. So we'll go right below the flare, and I'm gonna go to my social media icons here, and you can see I had 2 options really. Let me check this one so you can see this. I used this layer of icons, but I was thinking about using this one. Both of them would have gone with the wooden themed, but I essentially did the same thing I did for the text, so I'm just gonna show you one example. Let's grab the YouTube one, and is it retro? Yes. So you can just select all the retro logos you want. Obviously there's a limited amount. There's not one for every single one. Go over to the header, drag this guy in. Now what I did was on that, I first of all rotated all of them to go along with the angle. And then for YouTube, for example, I made the inside the color of the social media. So YouTube obviously is red. So I just got the elliptical tool, created a new layer that's a clipping mask, went in here, circled that YouTube logo, got the YouTube red, or like a darker version of it really, and filled that in. And that's essentially what I did for all of them. Then I did the same thing I did with the text, create a layer mask, get the black, get the scratches, and then beat it up. Beat it up a lot. And then I did that, actually I don't think I did it with the text, I just left the text alone. And I did that multiple times throughout for all the social media and kind of placed them wherever I felt like it. That's essentially it then. And I believe I finished it off by selecting everything, having it in a group, duplicate it, Command E to merge, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, set it to about 2, get the eraser tool, make sure it's just a soft brush, and kind of click around here and erase some of this stuff, leaving a blur on the edges and in some bits, and then selecting both of those, duplicating them, merging them, and finally filter, sharpen, sharpen more. And then that's basically the final product. Obviously it probably differs a little bit from the original. Yeah, the blood spatters are a little different, gun angle, yada yada. But that's the general gist of this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please drop a like on the video. At 100 likes, like I said, I'll put this file in the description for you guys to download. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Qehzy and subscribe for more tutorials. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.